Hey everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is your Right Angle Lightning Round. Now, if you're just tuning in to Right Angle and this is new to you, usually the three of us get in depth on one fairly serious topic, or at least relevant topic every week. But for the Lightning Round, it's something special. Instead of giving in one important story, I grab 5 headlines seemingly at random, but really with deviousness in my black little heart, and I inflict them randomly with no knowledge beforehand on Bill and Scott. And it's really just, this is a treat for me, and it's a little pain for them, and I hope you enjoy their pain as much as I do. So without further ado, let's dig into the first headline. And Bill, I'm going to start with you this week. March for Our Lives. I don't know. I saw that, Scott. March for Our Lives. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're one of these anti-gun groups that holds marches and demonstrations and stuff across the country. March for Our Lives raised nearly all funding from secret 6-figure donations. Isn't it the left that's always telling us that this dark money is bad?
Yeah, it makes you wonder why more people aren't out there marching for their lives, doesn't it? And when you run into these kind of things, you have to ask that kind of question. Where is the actual support? We know you've got good press coverage, but where's the actual support? I started to feel better about the 2016 election when I realized that Hillary Clinton couldn't put 80 people into a gymnasium, you know.
She needs 80 people to get her into a gymnasium.
Yeah, and Donald Trump is selling out, you know, stadiums with standing room only lines, you know, 200,000 people in a stadium, another 100,000 waiting outside, that kind of thing. So actual enthusiasm has markers, you know, and this is one of those cases where it just doesn't seem to be so. The one thing I think that actually is buried in this that is kind of important is it tells me that some people, or maybe someone, understands that it's worth 6 figures to have an organization like this. That this is an investment in their political goals. Now, I'm not going to say anybody particularly is involved, but whatever you want to say about him, and he may, in fact, be the grand prize winner for the most loathsome person on the planet. George Soros has not put $35 million into this kind of thing. He's put $35,000 million into it. He's put $35 billion into programs like this in order to modify society in a way that will benefit him. And the only thing that I think that needs to be said about something like this is, if we had 1% of the kind of understanding that the left has about social influence, and we had 1% of the people who put their money where their mouth is for the cause of justice and freedom and liberty in the way that these people are putting 6 figures in the cause of stamping those things out, you know, we'd be in an awful lot better shape. I'm just saying, I think the whole thing's obviously ridiculous, and I don't think there's anything behind it, but that somebody wrote them a 6-figure check. And I think it's about time that our side began to realize that you cannot get into this fight and expect that this thing is going to happen for free.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah. Steve, can I add something there?
Of course.
If the organizers of March for Our Lives and their supporters are successful in stripping individuals of the right to keep and bear arms, we will have only one option remaining to us, and that is to run for our lives.
I thought you were going to say to shoot them, but okay, whatever. Where'd I leave off? Scott, I chose this one just for you. George Lopez, you're familiar with the actor and comedian? He hasn't
I think I've seen him in a couple of movies, but I'm not sure I could recognize him in a police lineup.
Yeah, he hasn't been famous for a while, and he was never A-list famous, but he's trying to get back in the news.
Wasn't he an Ant-Man? Was he an Ant-Man? Was he an Ant-Man?
No.
No, that was a different guy.
A different guy. George Lopez under fire for joking about rumored $80 million bounty on Trump. What he said was, we need to get rid of Trump, and he would do it for half. I just love the fact that the story is phrased in a Republicans pounce kind of way. I remember, I think it was Ted Nugent made a joke, not a funny joke, about shooting Obama or having him bite his machine gun or something like that. And the Secret Service went to visit him. You think they should pay a Secret Service visit to Mr. Lopez, or just let it slide?
I think he's a non-entity. I think what he says and does doesn't matter. I don't think that the Secret Service should even have to look at a document that has the word George or Lopez written on it at any time in the next 10 years. He's not just laugh-worthy as a comedian, he's laughable as a person. If you go into your craft, which is supposed to make people laugh and the broadest number of people laugh, and you decide that instead you're going to use that to mount political attacks against people that you disagree with, you immediately winnow your audience down to just those people who are not only on your side, but the most despicable sorts of people, the people who think it would be funny to make a joke about assassinating the president. I don't think George Lopez is any threat to anybody. I don't think there's anybody following George Lopez who would think, yes, we must do what Master George instructs us to do. I really just think that we all ought to yawn and move on with our lives.
You know what, Scott? You just reminded me of this. Jazz used to be the popular music of America. It's what people listen to on the radio. It's the records they bought in the record stores back when we still had record stores. And after Charlie Parker, the sort of elite jazz musicians decided that, well, if it's popular, then it's no good. And real, authentic jazz has to be something that people don't want to listen to anymore. And it wasn't very long before jazz got replaced in the popular culture by rock and roll, because people want to listen to what people want to listen to. And the same thing is going on with comedy. If you're making jokes that aren't funny and you're trying to sell that as comedy, then people are going to find something else to laugh at. In this case, we're going to be laughing at George Lopez instead of with him. Bill, we're over to you. Notorious Antifa doxing activist. This is somebody who actually gives lessons on how to dox conservatives and libertarians and whatnot. Notorious Antifa doxing activist accused, credibly, I might add, of racism and predatory behavior, sexual predatory behavior. What I would say is, if you strip away the awful things like racism and sexual predation, you're pretty much just left with an awful person still, aren't you?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to put those two things, to put them in the same person and keep them separate, I'm a noble person with altruistic political goals, but I also happen to be a rapist and a sadist, and whatever the case may be. I find that a little difficult to believe. And it's an interesting point, because let's just contrast that with what you just asked me just a couple of minutes ago. March for Our Lives is a political agenda, and there are people in that organization who believe that this is a solution to a problem in society, and it is a problem in society. And so they are marching peacefully in order to try to influence people's opinions. Antifa is people wearing masks, going out into the streets, smashing windows, setting things on fire, and kicking and beating innocent people who they disagree with. Of all of the sources of irony available to us here in the beginning of this third decade of the 21st century, and it's a target-rich environment, it's going to be tough to find anything that history will look back on and say that the people who beat people up wearing black boots, black masks, black jackets, black pants, waving a red and black flag, that they are beating people up, innocent people, gay people who are wearing spectacles on the street, and they're beating them up because they're Nazis, is going to set the irony meter into explosive overdrive. They're going to have to start immediately putting control rods into the system before this thing just takes out the entire, arm of the galaxy. There's just so much irony you can only handle. But to your point, look, I have passionate feelings about this country. I have passionate feelings about defending what I think is good in this country. And I have spent the last 15, 20 years, as we all have, the three of us, attacking ideas that we think are bad for the country. But I have always maintained, and so has Scott, and so have you, and this is why we're friends, that these attacks are attacks against a philosophy. We have no desire to go beat up people. We have no desire to put people in jail. We don't have any desire to kill our enemies or line them up against the wall or any of that stuff. And it says an awful lot about people who are drawn to violence, political violence, because what it tells me is not that these people become violent because of what they believe. It tells me that they've chosen to believe this because it allows them to become violent. And that is an entirely different thing.
Yeah, it really is. That was enlightening and well said and all kinds of superlatives. So let's finish up with something silly for Scott, shall we? Scott, I'm just going to read you this headline and let you roll with it. I don't even know how to ask a question about it. New York Times reporter says Defense Department is, and I quote, quite tragically good at killing people.
You know, you think that this would be something the New York Times would be excited about because finally there's a government agency that can actually accomplish its purpose.
Wrong agency.
Well. What's that?
Wrong agency. It's the one they don't like.
I mean, it's the old adage, their job is to kill people and break things, and that is what they do. It also reminds me of something that I forget who it was that said this. I want to say it was somebody like Peter Drucker, but Tom Peters who wrote In Search of Excellence used to quote somebody as saying that, nobody went down in history as the guy who brought World War II in on time and under budget. When you're fighting a war, you have to get the job done. And the American philosophy, at least for many years now, has been war sucks. Let's get it over with as fast as possible. Now, we have violated that principle in some of our engagements now in places like Afghanistan and even to a certain extent Iraq, although it's been on and again, off again in Iraq. When we were successful in those places, when we were doing well, it's when we decided to exercise maximum military pressure in a way that brought the enemy to a point of decision. And this is what you're trying to do. You're not trying to see how many troops you can put in country and how long you can maintain stability there. You're trying to bring your adversary to the point of decision and force him to make one. And until you understand that, that you can't be a military leader that's worth his salt. I'm glad that the New York Times has finally recognized that we do have one agency in government that knows how to do its job. I only wish that more people in the media and frankly in the government, in Congress and in the administration understood that role of the military and basically said, look, we're not deploying this as a brushback pitch. We are deploying the military in a way that will bring us to a hinge point in history so that we can move on in peace.
What you just reminded me of, Scott, or made me think of World War II. We had very serious men in charge who understood that with 10 or 12 million men wearing the uniform, something like 5% of the total population and a much higher percentage, of course, of the military age population. When you've got that many men under arms, there is going to be huge popular pressure to win this war as quickly as possible and to get as many of those 10 or 12 million men and women home in one piece. And they took that job very seriously because they knew it was their hides. And with this damn terror war, the stakes are just never going to be that high. And that means you don't get serious men making serious decisions. And it's a damn shame that the incentive isn't there. Last headline, as per tradition, is reserved for me. AOA, I can't even speak at this point. I've been doing so many shows today. AOC, you remember her, our favorite Congress critter from Brooklyn, says Joe Biden is too conservative, would not be in the same political party as she is outside of America. And, my first thought when I read that headline was, all right, make your own party and, take a bunch of your far left wackos like Bernie Sanders and all the rest with you, and you'll die in the political obscurity in which you deserve.
It's what we all believe back on Tralflamador.
Yes. Good Vonnegut reference. Thank you for that, Bill. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Yes, please split off, form your own party, take the rest of the nutbags with you, because we really do need a sensible Democratic Party again. We really, truly do. I believe in a two-party system. That said, she won't. And the reason she won't, and this is what occurred to me while we were taping this segment just now, is that she understands that the Democratic Party has become so corrupt and so radicalized that it is completely ripe for a takeover by the AOC, Bernie Sanders radical wing. She's not going to kick out Joe Biden. She's already brought him over to her side. He's endorsed the Green New Deal. He says he wants to jail energy executives and all the rest. Shut up, AOC. You want to enjoy your moment. And that is your right angle lightning round for this week, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com, who decided to inflict this once members only content on you for reasons that are clear only to them, I suppose, but we sure do appreciate them. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.